Start whenever?
Yep.
Cool. So today I'm going to give you all a talk about what I think is possibly like the hardest thing to get right in 2025 in web development, or at least as a front-end developer, which is images. Which sounds kind of crazy because they've been around forever. Like the image tag in HTML has been around since the 90s. It's one of the first things that came out. And yet this year, in 2025, it's gotten so difficult to get them right, and there are so many problems that can happen to them. And I'm just going to try and convince you a little bit that actually we do have some solutions, but there's no silver bullet here. So a little bit about me. So I'm working for Evolving Web in Montreal in Canada. I'm originally from New Zealand, hence the weird accent. Hopefully you can try and understand me a little bit as I talk. I've worked as a front-end developer for my whole career so far, so about 13, 14 years maybe. I started out doing WordPress development, so I did that for a while, then I switched to Umbraco CMS, then I switched to Craft CMS for a little bit, and then a couple of years ago I switched to Drupal when I joined Evolving Web. And for me, I'm really fascinated by the human element of front-end development challenges, because quite often as programmers we want to slap like a coding fix on something. We want to, install like a module or something that's going to fix a problem, but quite often the fix is a lot bigger than that. It's more of a, a strategy or a systems way of doing things which can really solve the problem. So I'm going to try and talk about that today. All right, so imagine you've got a brand new homepage that you've just put live. And this right here, this hero section, this is the most important part of a website, right? So when you're visiting a website for the first time, the hero section, the big splashy kind of block when you first visit a page, that is the most important thing, right? Usually it's a full screen image, goes full width, might even go full height of your web browser as well. Usually has some overlaid text, it might even have a call to action, that kind of thing. But it's so difficult, like comically difficult to really get this looking right. Ironically, it's the most important part of a homepage, but there's so many potential problems that can go wrong here. So I'm going to try and walk you through a couple of them. So our first challenge is trying to find any image that works. Can we find any image that is going to actually work in our hero section? So imagine this, you've just put a website live, everything's looking great, it's looking very sharp and very polished, and then your content editor tries to change the image in Drupal, and you get this email from the editor. Our lovely project manager, Sabrina Carpenter here, is going to try and answer that and trying to come up with her solution. So let's have a little look and see what has gone wrong. So this is the website as it originally went live. You've got a nice picture of the university campus in the background. Everything's looking good. You've got a text section over the top which complicates things. And let's see what the new image looks like. Okay, so pretty easy to see what's gone wrong here, right? The focus of the image is just way too far to the left, and the picture of the two students is completely obscured. So we just need to find another image where the focus is more towards the right-hand side. So let's try and find another one. This one kind of works, but again, one of the students is still kind of obscured, so let's try and find one where it's more towards the right. No, that one's not going to work either. But what about if we just flipped it, right? We could do a horizontal flip, maybe that's going to work. This is a lot better, but you can still see it's obscured a little bit of her shoulder. Is there another image that we can find? And yes, so this is a picture maybe of a lecturer or like the director of the university or something, and you can see that the students' faces are obscured, but that's kind of fine. They're kind of not in focus. It's more of like a soft focus thing going on here, and the main subject matter is fully in view, so we're good to go. We've finally found an image that has worked. And then you get another email maybe the next day. So we didn't think of what it looked like on a smaller screen, like on a tablet screen. Let's see what's gone wrong there. So that brings us to our second challenge, finding an image, any image that also works on narrower screens. So can we find one that works on a tablet screen as well? So that's what it looks like on a laptop. And on a tablet, okay, so we're back to the same problem, right? So half the person is completely cut off. What if we just found another image where the actual focal point is even more towards the right-hand side, right? Now we're kind of getting into a really weird zone where there really aren't a lot of images out there where the main focus is so far on the right, even stock photos. It's actually hard to find one which is so far to the right-hand side. But let's just see if we can find another image that works. And I'll save you all the gory details, but here we have finally found one, right? And here you can see the student is in full view. The book is kind of obscured away, but I mean, who's reading these days anyway? That's not important, it's just a book. So I think this is pretty much good enough. And if we try and check on a larger screen, yep, so on our laptop, the top of her head is not quite there, but it's good enough, right? I think we're never going to find perfect, but this is pretty good. And we can even see the book there. So we finally found an image that works. Okay, so we didn't check on a mobile phone. So usually what happens on a mobile phone is things are stacking a little bit more. So you might have columns on a bigger screen. Let's see what it's looking like on a mobile. Yeah, so let's see if we can find a solution that works for different layouts. So on the tablet and on the laptop, we had the exact same layout. It was just shifting a little tiny bit. But on a mobile, it's going to be stacked. You've got the text section now at the bottom. And as you can see, the image is now trying to focus on the central part of it. So that central part of the image, by default in a lot of websites, no matter what technology you're using, it'll try and focus on that middle part of it and just crop away anything on the sides. That works nearly all the time. Not right now, because we've found an image, a really peculiar one, where she's so far across to the right, which is what we wanted. So what if we could just move it to the left, right? So that brings us to our first technology solution. This is something I'm sure a lot of the Drupal guys will already know about, but Drupal Focal Point module. This is something that's not just in Drupal, so many CMSs have this kind of same sort of idea. Basically enables you to go into the CMS, click a point on an image, and designate that as being the main focus of it. In that way, you can ensure that that particular point is never going to be cropped away. So no matter which crops are generated by the CMS, it will always have that in view. So maybe that is what we want, right? And there's also some really nice little plug for some Evolving Web video demos about that from a few years ago. So let's just try and apply that focal point module here. So in the CMS, we'll click on her face. That is the most important point. The generated crop will then look something like that. And finally, the problem is solved, right? Thanks to technology. So fancy that. Okay, so now the face has been cropped again on a tablet screen. We already fixed that, but let's see if we can fix this one. So our fourth challenge, finding a solution for desktop and mobile layouts at the same time, using different layouts, using different screen sizes. Can we find something that works for everything? Now I know this might seem a little bit like pedantic and stuff so far, but really we're just trying to find a really good solution for that hero component, which is the most important part of the homepage. Like, is there any way we can ensure that people's faces aren't being cropped off, or any kind of subject matter being cropped incorrectly in the most important part of the homepage? So that's what it looks like before, and with our new Drupal focal point now, it's moving her more towards the center, but that is not what we want, right? So we want the focal point to be on mobile, but not on tablet or desktop. So we're getting really complicated now, but stay with me for a little bit because we're going to try and see if we can solve this a little bit more. What if we just remove that focal point on tablet and desktop, and we're good to go, right? So we can have this two kind of solutions going on. Wider screens. So we haven't even talked about this yet, right? But what about the really wide screens? You get the big wraparound ones now. We haven't checked on those. And sure enough, now her whole brain's been cropped away. I mean, it's not terrible, but maybe this is as good as it gets. Maybe there's just no other way to crop things in a nice way. I mean, if we did use the focal point on the really wide ones, then it would work, kind of. I mean, now the whole book is gone, not that it's important anyway, it's 2025, no one's reading. You can see a little reflection of the book in her glasses, which sort of takes away from the completely zoned out look in her face. But I mean, realistically, we can't use this image either. So, is there another image that is going to work? No, not that one, not that one, not that one, not that one. And by now you can kind of understand that really there's just no photo that's ever going to work with our current setup. And it's at this point that you start to feel like the final boss of web development is going to win. Maybe we can just never get a really good solution. Maybe we just have to make do with okay. Okay, so now this is designed to boost engagement a little bit. So you might be having some ideas in your head right now about some other solutions that I haven't thought of. Maybe I'm missing something obvious. So we've got a couple of options here. Option A is maybe there's some other technology-based solution, like some other code fix. Another module, some other CSS trick, right, that's going to fix all of this for us. Option B, we look for the perfect holy grail image. So maybe there's that 1 in a million image that's just going to work for everything, and then we just never change it. Or option C, we just tweak the design a little bit, or change how we interpret the design. The Figma design from the designer could be interpreted slightly differently. Maybe that's the easiest option. So, hands up for option A, a technology-based solution. Who has got something like that in their head? Yeah, okay. Awesome, we've got a couple of people. All right, and option B, the perfect holy grail 1 in a million image. Nobody, that's kind of what I thought. And option C, some design changes. Okay, so we've got like 5 or 6 people now. And I'm so glad absolutely everybody picked option C, because that is exactly the next set of slides I've prepared. So thank you everyone for picking C. But seriously though, I'll talk to you guys later about the technology stuff. Maybe there's something else we can add in there too. Alright, so let's get on with some design ideas. How can we tweak the design a little bit and make all our lives easier? So why don't we shrink that damn box, right? This huge box, which is so hard to deal with on a tablet screen, let's just shrink that down a little bit and see what that looks like. And it's as easy as that, right? Now both the students are fully in view. This is going to work. And on a smaller screen, it's still working. We just have to hope that no one adds in another word, right? One more word and it's all going to come crumbling down. Oh, and another word's been added in there and now it's completely breaking out because it's so squashed. So we really don't want it to be squashed too much. Alright, well what about another idea? What about we just keep that image a fixed ratio? A lot of these problems are caused by the fact that the image is spanning the full width, which is unknown to us. It could be as wide as any screen can be, and it is full height a lot of the time as well, so it could be as high as whatever a screen is. I mean, that could be anything as well. So how about we simplify this a little bit and try to come up with a fixed ratio. This also works really well for content editors, right? If we have a 1:2 image on the screen, that's very easy for then someone to come into Drupal, know exactly that they need to upload a 1:2 image. So maybe this is part of our solution. Maybe this is going to make our lives a lot easier. And on a smaller screen, it's still looking good. On an even smaller screen, it's barely fitting in there now, because on a smaller screen, 1:2 is too small, right? Like on a laptop, on a tablet screen that is in like a portrait format, 1:2 is actually too small. So, but this works as long as no more words are added in. Please, please, please don't add any more text in there. Too late. And now it's breaking out. So 1:2 is too small. Well, how about we have multiple ratios for all different screen sizes? 1:2, 2:3, 3:4, 3:2. Okay, now it's getting back to a place where it's really complicated. This is hard to keep track of. In Drupal, it's hard to explain to the person uploading the image what kind of image they should even upload. But this does work. Is there a better solution? And also this means that some of the content will be below the fold, right? So when you first load the page, you might see this, and then you scroll a little bit and you see some of the image, or maybe some of the content is peeking above, but maybe that's fine. Maybe that's just something we have to deal with. Oh, sorry. Okay, so the third idea is, why don't we just remove that pesky white box? So that white box is obscuring so much content, let's just get rid of it, right? Let's just get rid of the white box and just have white text on an image. Never caused any accessibility problems ever. Said no one ever. So now we have another issue where this image doesn't work, the original one, because it's not dark enough, or maybe it's too busy on that side. So now let's find another image that actually is dark enough on the left and not too busy. Not that one, 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 not that one. This one actually does work. So we've finally found one where it's nearly all black, kind of like a nighttime setting, and this one does work, and it's sort of a nice sort of fitting picture of us as well as we're going along in this journey. Okay, so we haven't really solved it yet, but the designer wants to know exactly the width and the height of the image that they need to upload into Drupal should be, right? It's a pretty solid question. But I mean, we haven't even worked out how wide our image could be. I mean, it could be as wide as anything. How wide can a screen be? How long can a piece of string be? I mean, it could be 5,000 pixels wide. And the height, I don't know. Are we going to do the multiple ratios? Then it just could be anything. So we don't know. The ratio, we have also no idea. The best solution we came up with was multiple ratios. Maybe we have 4 inputs in Drupal, 4 fields, to make it really clear about which ones we can use. And at this point, Sabrina has lost her mind. And just in time for Halloween, she has been KO'd. All right, so time for a little bit of problem solving. I've talked a lot about the problem so far, but what are some actual solutions that we could come up with? So just to recap the problem, the image could have overlaying text and graphics that have to be avoided. So if there are layers over the top, it could be a search box, it could be anything that's coming over the top, that has to be avoided. The image has to avoid those zones. That's really hard for a content editor to do without just constantly doing a trial and error approach, uploading an image and see if it works. The size of our image depends on the screen. The aspect ratio depends on the screen size as well. We have no idea about that. It could have white text over the top, hopefully not. And this is another thing which we haven't even covered. The image could expand depending on the content. So in a lot of modern magazine-based designs, you have images that stretch and shrink depending on how big the content next to it or above it is. So God forbid we do that as well. And this is what really gets me, right? It hasn't always been this way. So when I first started doing web development, this was pretty much just before responsive design came about. So people weren't looking at phones, looking at websites on their phones at all. And it was so much easier because you just designed an image in Photoshop and you saw it exactly in its entirety in Photoshop. You plonked it on the website and that was it. There was like a one-to-one relationship, right? So if you wanted a picture of Nickelback on your website, pick whatever size you want, just a little image. Websites back then couldn't have huge ones, right? So it's just a little, tiny little thing with a really small file size. And we just plonk it straight into the website, and it's always that size. No one's ever looking at it on their mobile phone, right? Because they're too busy playing Snake or whatever. And that was it. It was so easy. Okay, so what are some actual solutions to these modern day magazine-style websites with all their bits and pieces? So one really good solution is just to limit the images from being full width, right? We don't want them to be the full width of the screen. What about we limit them to like 1400 pixels wide and no more than that? And on a really wide screen, it's just blank space, just white space on the left and right. I know designers don't like that kind of thing, but that also helps us with uploading an image as well, because now we can actually say to the content editor, upload an image that is 1400 pixels wide, or maybe double that for a retina screen. And also the really large images are a performance burden. So even if someone on a really big screen, has a good connection, we still don't want to be giving them these huge, massive images anyway. And we also need to make sure that the image sizing is independent of the content. So whatever content you add in there, whatever text or buttons or call to actions or whatever you add into the CMS, that should not affect the sizing of the image in any way. You might think, well, when would that happen? Well, this is a really benign looking component, right? Pretty generic. I was just dealing with something like this earlier this year. You have an image on the left, you have two little articles on the right. The content in here, the number of lines, the number of elements, for example, if the call to action button wasn't in there, also this text, all of that impacts the sizing of the image in addition to the screen width, in addition to the stacking. So you really have a situation where it's literally impossible to ever get an image in here that is actually going to look good and resize correctly. So if you had a little bit more text in there, now you can't see his face. This is kind of okay, but it's too stretched now on a small screen. Yeah, now you can't really see much at all. Now you can't see the laptop. So there's really just no way to ever get that looking right. So another solution, and something we kind of touched on before, is maybe there's some clever text solutions. So I'm pretty new to Drupal, so maybe there are some other Drupal field types and things that we can use. You've also got like image styles, responsive image styles that you can leverage. They can help, but this isn't going to be like a silver bullet solution to all of this. There's also CSS properties like object fit and object position. This is a way to bring in those crops on the front end of the site and then manipulate them a little bit on the fly in the browser without actually having to generate brand new image URLs. So that's part of the toolkit, but it's not going to be like a magic solution that's going to fix everything. Performance, I'm just going to touch on this briefly. So I went to a really good talk yesterday where he talked about these performance audits, right, which you can get from a bunch of different tools like Lighthouse. And one of the biggest bottlenecks is image sizes. I mean, if you have videos on a site, they're usually even bigger. But for most websites, images are one of the biggest bottlenecks. So we really want to optimize images as much as we can on a website. This is a really big problem if we don't even know how big those images are going to be. So this is a little bit of code that shows you how you can actually deliver different image URLs to the browser. You can have something like this, and the browser can pick the ideal image that it thinks will be just big enough for what it needs. You can also tell the browser through the sizes attribute exactly which of the images it should pick based on how big it's going to be. So you can inform the browser ahead of time how big that image is going to eventually display. Now the browser's going to download one of these image URLs before it's interpreted any CSS. So before it's actually fetched that CSS file, maybe it's going to be already fetching one of these. And that's why you have this weird sizes attribute, which is sort of a little bit like CSS in HTML. It's kind of a weird thing, but it's doing that for performance reasons to try and download that image as soon as possible. But how can we do that if we ourselves have no idea how big that image is going to be? It might depend on content, screen size, could depend on absolutely everything. And we can even make it more complicated. I mean, compared to the 90s, where you just had this line here for an image, we're now looking at something like this, where even on a mobile phone, you now have different crops of images coming through. And this is something called art direction, right, where you can actually bring through different styles of image for different screen sizes. So this is one of my little tips. This is something I invented, so it's not really an actual term. Don't go Googling this. But one thing that we can do is trying to avoid pouring in an image. So quite often in a Figma design, you'll see a zone, something that's sort of just a region that needs an image in it. Like it's sort of a background image, right? This is a red flag, and so we want to avoid this. And I've had enough of red flags in my life, so we want to try and minimize these as much as we can. But basically, if you have an image that's not really dictating its own size on the website, an image card is one where it's kind of okay. But those last two examples we saw, where you have a hero image, or the other component where it's sort of morphing based on the content around it, those poured-in images, that's something we want to avoid. Don't use magic images. Again, this is something I just invented. It's not a real thing. But magic images are photos in Figma that just so happen to work, right? If there's any designers in the room, you might be a bit guilty of this, right? Where you're in Figma and there's an image and you just kind of nudge it pixel by pixel until the exact people's faces are just in view. And really what you've created is an irreplaceable image. You cannot replace that with anything, and it's not going to work on multiple screen sizes anyway. It could also be a magical image that has a particular blurry nature to it. So designers love blurry images, you know, ones with soft focus, because they work everywhere, right? If you have a really blurry image, all the text is going to be readable on it. There's not going to be much focus in the image, so you can actually just have whatever you want over the top of it. But real-world photos are not that blurry, you know? Certainly unless you have like a professional photographer who's going out and doing something like this, maybe that could work, but yeah, we usually want to avoid that. So that's one more for the designers. And this is a controversial one, right? So we might want to embed special images in the design. So this is sort of treating them as something special that is outside the realm of the editing experience. So we're removing it from Drupal completely. We're treating it like it's part of the brand, basically. So just like you wouldn't normally go into Drupal and swap out the logo, you know, you don't really want to give the editor much control over that. Maybe we treat the hero image as something that's super special as well. And in the rare cases where it does need a change, maybe we get the designer on board and they just make something, they make one of those 1 in a million images that's just going to work. We could also leave explanatory notes in Drupal, like saying, hey, don't update this image, get a designer to do it. I mean, the upside to this is that the images are always going to look great and the homepage is always going to look awesome. And so, yeah, there's no magic bullet solution here, but I do have a couple of takeaways for different people in the room. You might be from different sectors and things. So some technology solutions, again, we can use focal points, we can use image styles, we can use responsive image styles, we can use CSS techniques, a lot of stuff as a front-end developer that we can use to tweak how that image displays. We can also analyze the designs early on and actually highlight these things. A lot of these components look totally fine and benign and regular. Like if you saw that hero component at the beginning, or the other one I showed you, you might think, yeah, that's totally doable. But really, you're never ever going to get a great looking design with something like that. Design adjustments. So we can just tweak the design a little bit and solve a lot of these things. So I think this is probably the best solution. Maybe we just avoid those text overlays whenever we can. Never have text over an image if you can help it. Avoid using magic images. So these are images that are just working. They have that nature where they just work exactly on that one view in the Figma file but never anywhere else. And avoid kind of zones where you're pouring in an image because it needs to have one in there. And also for a content strategy, right? So a lot of this depends on the images that you have in your arsenal. So if you're starting a project and you do a stock take of all the images that a client has, maybe you'll notice they're all scenery photos. That's a blessing because now there's really no focus, right? Like a nice scenery photo, a nice mountain landscape, you can pretty much crop that however you want and it's going to be no issue. But if they really want to focus on people and people's faces, then that is going to be a big one. Or maybe the images are too small and maybe there are no huge images available for a massive hero component. Maybe we just don't use it in that case. And the other thing is building a team awareness around it. So actually making people aware that this kind of image is not just something to be taken lightly. For example, you might have an event, right? And it's tempting to just upload an image there that has a whole lot of text in it, like it's a poster image for the event. We want to discourage that because, well, then there's text as well that's going to get cropped off in all these different scenarios. And yeah, that's it, basically. So, thank you. shorter talk today, but we might have some time for questions and things. Or if anyone has any other technology solutions as well, like any other field types and things, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we used Focal Point when we were in Drupal 7. When we went to modern Drupal, we went to the image crop module,
Okay, cool.
which gives you flexibility at the expense of complexity.
Mm-hmm.
Like, instead of picking a single focal point, you're drawing a rectangle for each breakpoint.
Oh, right, I think I've seen that, and you
Yeah.
have like, you can click through
Yeah,
the different ones.
and I mean, you're never getting fine grained with that because you're drawing a rectangle for 1,200 pixels and something that's 100 pixels wide, but
Yeah.
yeah.
So it's a bit more complex, but yeah,
Yeah.
it's part of the solution, I think,
Yeah.
for one of these like really important hero sections. I think maybe something like that actually is kind of appropriate.
Yeah. And then,
Yeah.
I mean, in other spots, we just like accommodations, like when you're putting the thing, we have a choice of right or left for the text overlay.
Oh, okay, so you can actually swap sides.
Yeah, or
Yeah.
like for things where it's just text straight on an image, setting for is the image light or dark? Do you want
Yeah.
shadowing? Do you want shading?
That's a good one, yeah. And it sort of requires input from the designer as
Yes.
well, but if that's part of the whole process, then it has even more flexibility, because then you can upload way more images and you can customize actually how the layout's going to work around it.
And it's still not bulletproof because there's always the what if somebody makes something gigantically tall.
Exactly,
But,
yeah.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on media? The
On media?
module?
On the media module?
Yeah.
I don't know if I've used that. I don't really do too much in the Drupal back office, so I'm kind of new to a lot of that sort of thing, but yeah. Can you explain like what that does?
Well, I think Drupal at one point thought it was going to be the replacement for the field image,
Oh, okay.
but to me it just doesn't work. It doesn't do half of what.
So it's just a different way of doing images.
Yeah, I mean, we
Yeah.
use Media Library everywhere where we used to use images.
Yep.
And I mean, all it really does is abstract the image field over, because in the media item, you have an image field.
Oh, okay.
The problem with it is you don't have access control, so everybody can see and use
Every image.
every image, which you couldn't.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, we used it just around with the idea that it was gonna help with reusability, because people could search the library and use the same image again. Some of the restrictions around things have meant weird things like context. If you're using the same image in one place where it needs alt text and another place where the alt text should be blank, media out of the box doesn't handle that. You have to have alt text override or some there's a module for it, but
Okay, yeah.
yeah.
So I think Alan might run a public, like a site where lots of people can log in and upload images, which is a really traditional Drupal kind of usage. So it's really cool that that's happening, but then it's difficult to control access through Media Library. There might be modules for that though. You'd think somebody has solved this problem.
I don't know,
Yeah.
I couldn't find one, but there may be.
Yeah.
I think now, we use media for everything too, and that is one of the restrictions. Yeah, because we found that it works well, it's so, especially for documents, okay? So, for like, not so much for images, but for documents. Now people are accidentally uploading the same document multiple times, right? So, and that's without much governance even, right? Just, here's the media module, have at it, and they're doing pretty good at replacing their documents instead of accidentally having duplicates. So they're, but for that, for what you want, adding groups, right? So then, because you can put media in groups as well, then that would work.
Yeah, I might have even worked with that media thing before. I don't know, usually just as a front-end developer, I just work with the image tag that comes through, but
Yeah, and then you have something like what Kevin was describing within the image where you crop, and then you can have the same media image cropped in different ways for different use cases, or like the way some other people have talked about using components and different components and using a different crop. I think the challenge I've had is getting editors to know that the crop option is there. And to like train people to use it and not, then you have some new person staff comes in who doesn't notice that it's there, and then they have, the problems that you're describing again, because they don't know that they can actually go in and change those problems. And like Kevin said, it's a bit of a more complicated UX than the focal point.
But it seems like you could reduce the number of support calls to Sabrina if the content editor was able to like see the snapshots of what the hero image would look like.
Exactly, yeah.
Like
Yeah.
when they were going to publish or something like that?
Yeah, it would be not just seeing the snapshots, but sure trying to see the snapshots of also on multiple screen sizes.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah, it's such a tricky
Like the
thing.
thing that you showed with the different aspect ratios there.
Yeah, that could work. Or I've even thought before, like maybe like some sort of like animated sort of thing that like actually visually shows you how it will look, and actually literally expands and contracts on your page, maybe.
But I don't know if Drupal has such
Yeah.
a thing. Like those are like, because when you do web testing, you can submit your website to sites that will take snapshots with different browsers and in different ratios and whatever.
I mean,
Yeah.
Canvas has that thing where it's got the drop down where you can select different aspect ratios to see for your page preview.
Mhm.
You can also use just the minimize.
I mean, yeah, I mean, the biggest thing is getting people to use it.
Yeah,
Mm.
so
Like
this
you
would
can say,
have to
like,
be,
all you really have to do is resize your web browser and you'll see it at every size.
Yeah, people just want to go in there and just upload an
Yeah.
image and have it work,
Yeah.
but sometimes it's...
I'm on a
Yeah.
desktop, it
Yeah.
looks fine to me, I don't care anymore.
that's what I mean, like on the
Yeah.
publish, when you hit publish,
Yeah.
or before you hit publish,
Yeah,
As
I
part
use
of the
a laptop.
preview.
I don't use mobile, so I don't care.
Yeah.
I feel like Aiden, who did the demo of Drupal CMS this morning, might have a...
Well, I mean, so that's Canvas, which is in Drupal CMS. And at least has the buttons up top, which is mobile, desktop, big desktop. And then it scales, so what's missing from squishing your browser, which absolutely is the correct, realistic test. But if you will need to simulate something that's bigger than your own screen, you can zoom out. If you know, you can control zoom in and out to use the accessibility tools to like demagnify your browser to like 50% of its normal size to simulate a gigantic screen in there. But Canvas has those buttons up top, so it's just way more discoverable and easy. So, you know, January 2026, when Canvas is going to be stable sometime, that is definitely an excellent solution, but it does mean you're refactoring your page in Drupal, so that's not a small lift either. So I think we've got an answer coming, but the underlying challenges that are presented here are not going to be, it doesn't change, it just, it changes how you preview it, not the underlying problems.
I think part of the problem is that people just think of images as being such a simple thing.
Yeah.
Like, I'll just replace the photo, you know. They don't realize, oh, people might be looking at it in a completely different sort of size is what I'm seeing. Yeah. So any way we can help that is be good.
I'm sorry, I was popping in and out, but I know that when you're designing things, you're kind of doing it in the abstract, and you have this one photo, and you're going to create this design around this one photo, but then the reality is they're going to want to change it.
Yeah.
And then they're like, oh no, we don't have photos that go with this layout, or we design this layout around this hero, around a certain image, but we don't actually have it, or we want to use this image, but then the hero doesn't work with that, the layout doesn't work with that image, so yeah, it's just kind of always...
Yeah. Everyone wants like the big splashy kind of image.
Right.
When you launch a website, but it's actually hard to like
Mhm.
find a really good quality one that's going to work.
Yeah.
The easiest solution is just to have a little square image and then some text
Yeah.
next to it. But no one really wants that because there's no impact.
Yeah. It's hard to
to it.
design that too. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just also noting that the Drupal CMS Canvas, it's got this built-in theme with components called Mercury in it, and just of this problem of like how do you make cool heroes with big images in them, it's got a couple really good defaults that are like, and because you can live preview them, you can do things like it's text overlay on the image, and you can control how much tint on a gradient that's designed to work with the text area just gets overlaid on your image. And because you can just fool around with it and see it instantly happening in the UI as you edit it, there's a lot of the barriers that, you're like, imagine this image in a different context, with more or less text on it. At least you can see all that. and then just kind of click
Yeah,
through
exactly.
viewport previews of all that stuff, which you still need to remember to do, but it's a less of a lift, which is pretty exciting as well.
Yeah, cool to see.
One thing that would be neat if AI ever gets there is like, how good is this image that they've picked?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, we're at a university, we have thousands of sites, hundreds of authors. Everything from it's the co-op students who's here for 4 months to it's a person who's in marketing and knows what they're doing. And you get some very interesting decisions about photos sometimes. Like we've had sites where they say, oh, you don't support videos? I'll upload a 25 meg animated GIF. And
Any more questions and comments? Oh, yeah.
I'm curious if anybody has ever created an asset library and then handed that off. It's like, we started kind of experimenting with this for like hero images. So we'll, instead of handing it off with like one image, we like test 15, 20 images and we hand off that set of images. And then the client can choose if they're switching out the hero from the 20 images and which one they want to use. It doesn't work for universities, obviously,
Yeah, well-
because there's like
well,
hundreds of thousands.
I was gonna say, like, we go way too far in the other direction because we have an image bank system
Okay,
that has like every photo everyone's ever taken across campus. And it can be queried, but yeah, it's not like gonna be right for your situation, it's just the image happens to exist.
yeah.
And we've done the same thing, and then just put access control on being able to upload to add to that library, so the idea is responsible designer folks who actually bother to test it can contribute to that, but not everyone.
I don't run our asset bank, but I'm pretty sure we do have like limits on it, but still it tends to become, here's everything the accredited photographer took at the event, whether it's good or not. Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Thanks everyone for